Dead Body Motel. On July 13, 2003, at the Motel Capri in Kansas City, Missouri, a motel guest had checked into a room and complained a number of times to the staff that there was an extremely pungent smell. The staff claimed that there was nothing that they could do about the smell, insinuating that the motel just smelled bad. The guest allegedly stayed in the room for 3 days before finally being unable to take the smell any longer. The motel staff went into the room afterwards to clean and discovered a decomposing human body underneath the mattress. Police investigations determined that the body was an adult male and it had been hidden under the mattress 3 days prior to its discovery, right before the guest checked in. It is unknown who left the body there. The Springfield Three. Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Suzanne Streeter's mother, Cheryl Levitt, went missing on June 7, 1992 in Springfield, Missouri. Streeter and McCall had graduated high school the previous day and had spent their night celebrating with friends at graduation parties. After realizing their friend's house was too crowded to sleep, the pair went to Streeter and Levitt's house and were last seen at 2 a.m. Levitt herself had been last heard from at 11:15 p.m., where she was talking to a friend at length over the telephone about painting an armoire. All of the women's personal effects had been found at the home, and when McCall was reported missing the next day by her parents, police found a crime scene that had been corrupted by 10 to 20 people who had visited the home. Tiffany Saborin. One April morning in 1998, a student of Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri, was on their way to work when they made a startling discovery. While walking a small path through the college campus, the naked, dead body of a young teenager was found just off the trail. What is even more startling, however, is the fact that the body had no head. The body belonged to 15-year-old Tiffany Saborin. This discovery immediately prompted an investigation where Tiffany's severed head was later found in a portable toilet on campus. The bedsheet belonged to 21-year-old Jason Shipman. Jason's roommate recognized the patterns on the bedsheet and, upon seeing it on the television, provided investigators with Shipman's location. Analysis had shown that Jason sexually assaulted Tiffany. There may have been some relationship between Tiffany and Jason, and perhaps another suspect, but the link between the three of them is unclear. I-70 serial killer. In 1992, there was a spree of murders across Interstate 70. They were all gunshot victims who perished in their places of work and malls along the highway. The murders were committed in 4 different states, the first starting in Indianapolis, Indiana with Robin Foldauer on April 8th. The next was Patricia Smith and Patricia Maggers in Wichita, Kansas on April 11th in the bridal shop where they worked. April 27th saw the death of Michael McCown of Terre Haute, Indiana in a ceramics store. The next was Nancy Kitzmiller in St. Charles, Missouri on May 3rd at a boot store. Finally, there was Sarah Blessing in Raytown, Missouri on May 7th in a gift shop. Forensics linked the cases to the same gun, a semi-automatic .22 caliber pistol, as well as other murders in Texas in 1993 and 1994. The suspect has never been caught, but they were described as a male with reddish or sandy-colored hair who is between 5'8" and 6 feet tall, with lazy eyelids and a high forehead. He would be in his mid-60s today. Linda Sherman. On April 22, 1985, beloved wife and mother, Linda Sherman, was reported missing. Her family and friends searched tirelessly for her, but only came up with loose ends. She left for work at 6 p.m. and wasn't heard from again. Her husband, Don Sherman, having reported seeing her with a strange man before her disappearance, and in the days afterwards, claims to have seen her in a van with the same man, ducking out of sight upon seeing her husband. Fast forward to 1990. A skull is found outside of a Casa Guerra restaurant in Bridgeton, Missouri, which had been Linda's favorite place to eat. The police were unable to identify the skull, and a year later, a note was sent to the Veneta Park police station that read, "The Bridgeton police have L. Sherman's skull." The skull was tested against Linda Sherman's dental records, and it was a match. The investigation took a shift with the acknowledgement of Linda's death, and the police looked into Linda's husband, Don. Without any evidence linking anyone to her murder, the case remains open. Jeanette Chrisman. Have you checked the children? The 1979 horror movie When a Stranger Calls and its 2006 remake are loosely based on a murder that occurred in Columbia, Missouri on March 19, 1950. Jeanette Chrisman, just 13 years old at the time, was babysitting for a family that evening when at 10:35 p.m. she made a disturbing phone call to 911. She was recorded to have been screaming and crying unintelligibly, only muttering the words, "Come quick," before the call was disconnected. Police did not arrive at the house Jeanette was babysitting at because, at the time, there were no phone operators on duty and the line could not be traced. At approximately 1:35 a.m., the parents of the child that Jeanette was babysitting came home to find that their porch light was on, a window broken, and the front and back doors unlocked. When they entered their home, they made a truly horrifying discovery. Jeanette's dead body on the floor, which had been bleeding profusely, soaking deeply into the carpet to form a literal pool of blood. Police analysis revealed that there were many signs of what they called a terrific struggle, as the walls were splattered with blood and had smears of handprints. Jeanette's face had been scratched by fingernails. Deep cuts were found on both sides of her head, and very small puncture wounds were found in her scalp, as if having been stabbed by a very small metal object. It was finally determined that Jeanette had been strangled to death with the cord from an iron. In the aftermath, a number of suspects were questioned for the murder. Although there is no conclusive evidence to incarcerate anybody, even after 50 years since the incident, Jeanette Chrisman's killer has never been caught. Angie Hausman. In November 1993, 9-year-old Angie Hausman from St. Anne, Missouri had just gotten off the bus from school and was on her way to her house just down the street. This would be the last time she would ever be seen alive. 9 days after her disappearance, a local deer hunter in the Bush Wildlife Conservation Area discovered something shocking: Angie's dead, frozen body. According to police reports, Angie's body was tied to a tree, duct tape was wrapped around her head, and her hands were bound behind her back in handcuffs. It was determined that she was kept alive for a full week, being tortured and raped by her abductor before leaving her to die out in the middle of the woods. Although a fingerprint was discovered on the duct tape, her killer has not been found even after 20 years. Gina Dawn Brooks. August 5th, 1989. Gina Dawn Brooks was last seen riding her bicycle near a local church in Fredericktown, Missouri. She had spent the day watching her brother play baseball and then went for a ride. They found her bike near a tree on High Street with no trace of Gina. There were witnesses to her kidnapping, including her boyfriend TJ. It was reported that a station wagon pulled up next to her after a pursuit. The station wagon then drove towards Highway 67 and was never seen again. She was 13 when abducted, and 3 men have been implicated for her disappearance. Bryant Squires as the driver, who has since died of cancer and AIDS-related complications. Nathan D. Williams, who witnesses report seeing seated in the back of the station wagon with Gina, and Timothy R. Bellew, who lied to authorities about the whereabouts of Gina's remains. All charges were dropped in 2003 based on a lack of evidence. Gina Dawn Brooks has never been located. Jane Doe decapitation. On February 28, 1983, 2 men were searching an abandoned apartment building in St. Louis, Missouri, when they made a truly startling discovery: the decapitated body of a young child. An autopsy revealed that the child was a black female between the ages of 7 to 12, and that their head was removed after they had died. It was apparently too difficult to ascertain if the child had been raped. Perhaps the most startling thing about this case is that the child's head was never recovered. 30 years after the discovery of the body, the identity of the child nor the killer have ever been found. Bianca Piper. At 6:15 p.m. on March 10, 2005, in the rural town of Foley, Missouri, in an area most renowned for methamphetamine, domestic violence, and child abuse, 13-year-old Bianca Piper went missing. Bianca was diagnosed with ADHD and severe bipolar disorder and had been throwing temper tantrums. Her therapist advised her mother to let her take a walk to cool off, which, this particular night, is what occurred. Bianca asked to be dropped off further away than usual and started walking on McIntosh Hill Road, a mile from her home. When she hadn't made it home by 8:20 p.m., her mother reported her missing. Investigators initially believed that she had gotten lost and then perished from exposure, but remains were never found. Her illnesses caused her to have mood swings, aggressive tendencies, periodic anxiety attacks, and difficulty with self-control, as well as hallucinations and disorientation, if not medicated. Police believe she had been abducted, but with her mother, Shannon Tanner, getting arrested in June of 2009 for beating Bianca's older sister with a heated curling iron and threatening to lock her in a room, as well as her other sister, Tiffany Piper, facing sex trafficking charges that occurred in 2012, where she was setting up high school-age girls to prostitute themselves in St. Peter's hotel rooms to much older men. It was revealed Tiffany Piper herself was trafficked when she was younger. What really happened to Bianca?